Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Information Space Day of the European Innovation Council for Work Programme 2023. This morning, we will start with Information Day. And first, before we start the day, please note that your camera and microphone are switched off. The meeting is being recorded, and please ask all your questions in the chat. And please keep in mind that the event will be recorded and the slides will be available on the events page. So before I start, I would like to introduce my colleagues. Anne-Marie Sansen, the head of unit of all the program managers in the European Innovation Council. Eric Olivier, Senior Policy Advisor for the Work Programme 2023. And then we will be joined also by my colleagues Daniel Nauke from DG DEFIS Pillar 2 and Maria Vitoria, also who will talk about the IOD IOV. So we will first start with the Accelerator Challenge, and we will discuss the different types of space challenges. There will be some questions and answers. Then will be followed at 11 o'clock by presentation from my colleagues from DG DEFIS to talk about the future space ecosystem and the IOD and IOV and how the EIC Accelerator projects would fit in. The next session will be the Pathfinder one, and my colleague Darina from the Pathfinder unit, she will join us open to answer questions. So first I would introduce the Space Challenge for in-space solar harvesting, followed by questions and answers. And then the first come first selected companies will have a pitching session of 3 minutes. Every organization will have 2 slides and 3 minutes to present themselves. And the idea is to encourage the creation of future consortium. And then there will be a wrap up. So now I suggest we start with the presentation of Anne-Marie Sassen. But Anne-Marie, it's all yours.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Stella. Good morning, everybody. This is the first info day that we are organizing on the challenges of the 2023 work program. And I want to start with explaining you where we are in the Horizon Europe structure. So I want to give an introduction to the European Innovation Council. So on the slide, you see the whole overview of Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe has 3 pillars, and the European Innovation Council is in Pillar 3. And Pillar 3, which is dedicated to innovative Europe. Go to the next slide. In the European Innovation Council, we want to fund research, fundamental research, but also bring it to the market. And with this objective, we have 3 instruments, which are a bit different than the instruments in the rest of Horizon Europe. And our 3 main tools, they are Pathfinder, Transition, and Accelerator. And with Pathfinder, we want to fund early research, which has the potential to be very disruptive. It's also high risk. It are ideas which are not fully tested yet, even though already some preliminary evidence is there that this could work. And so the Pathfinder, it focuses on TRL 1 to 4. It is for consortia, and you will get a grant up to 3 to 4 million euro if you are chosen during the evaluation. So we also have a Pathfinder challenge for space, and at 11 o'clock, we will discuss this program. Then we have our second tool is transition. So with Pathfinder, the idea is that you bring up your research to TRL level 4, more or less. And it could be that the research is not yet ready for the market, but it is already potentially very good, but you need to study more the business model, for instance. In that case, the projects can apply for a transition project where you can do a technology maturation and go to validation of your concepts. And here you would receive another grant up to €2.5 million. And transition goes from TRL 4 to 6. And then our third instrument, it's Accelerator. And in Accelerator, which is for individual SMEs that are already doing their business, they already have a business model, and that would be to scale up their business. In Accelerator, you can get blended finance, and that means there can be a grant component up to €2.5 million, but there's also equity investment up to €15 million or above. So Accelerator is really to scale up the good, innovative companies that we have and make them access new markets, and that also requires larger amounts of investments. Yeah,
yes, that's right.
Yeah. So if you look at this slide, where we again have the three instruments, Pathfinder, Transition, and Accelerator, you can see that we go from research to commercial. On the research side, we address more the question of what. In the commercial side, we need to think about the why. And what we see is that in every instrument, we do not only improve the technology readiness, but we also improve the commercial readiness. And that's very important to understand that in the European Innovation Council, this outlook towards the market always needs to be there. And that, for instance, also distinguishes us, the EIC, from the European Research Council, which also funds fundamental research. But there, this view on the market is not as present as in our case. Next slide, please, Stella. Another distinctive feature of the European Innovation Council is that we also provide proactive management. We provide support services to all the projects. They do not get only a grant, like in the rest of Horizon Europe, but they also get a package of useful support to really make it to the market. And one of these components of the support are the business acceleration services. And on this slide, you can see what these business acceleration services are. For instance, access to entrepreneurs, access to mentors, to ecosystems, to partners, to trainings, to expert advice. Many of the blockages or challenges that young companies need to face, you can get support from the business advisory service to know how to go about it. The second new component are the program managers. So today, this session is organized by the Program Managers Office. We have, in my unit, we have 10 program managers. You can see here the specializations that they have. So we have health and biotech, medtech, and also space technology. And today we have here then the program manager of space, which is Stella, who will present the challenges. So we will have, by the way, information days on all these topics. They are scheduled over the next 2 weeks. And every time it will be another program manager who will be presenting the challenges related to his or her work. So the program managers, they are something new. They are experts which are hired for 4 years by the European Commission. And they need to develop visions where Europe should invest and is not investing enough. But the program managers, they, together with other experts in the field, they identify areas where there is potential for Europe, but we're not doing enough focused investment. And those visions, they are then translated into the challenges in the work program. And today we will then hear the challenges related to space. And once you have applied to the projects, you have applied to the call for proposals with a proposal, and your proposal is selected, then you will become part of a portfolio of projects working in this area. And then the program managers will also actively support you with, especially looking at how can we really bring your research to the market. So that is the proactive portfolio management that we have. And then, of course, there will also be the project officers. If you have ever done a grant in Horizon Europe, you know that there's always a contact person from the Commission appointed to your project who will support you, who will carry out the reviews of your projects and things like that. So with these set of people, you will really have a lot of support, a lot of content-wise services to your disposition, which you do not have in, for instance, in Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe. Next slide. So this slide shows an overview of the whole 2023 work program and of the EIC. And you can see that it's quite complex, but if you take a closer look, it's also quite logical how the work program is built up. So first of all, we have the three, on the right-hand side, you see the three instruments that we have: Pathfinder, Transition, and Accelerator. You can see how much funding is dedicated to each of these instruments. And then you can also see that all three instruments, they have an open part where anybody can submit a proposal on any topic. So this is bottom up. You have a good idea that fits the Pathfinder criteria. You can submit it to the open part. So about half of the whole budget of the EIC is allocated to the open part to really stimulate all good potential disruptive ideas to have a chance to get funded by us. And then the other half, it's dedicated to challenges. So we have challenges in Pathfinder, in Transition, and in Accelerator. And if we now go to the right-hand side of the slide, you can see all the challenges, the different challenges that we have for Pathfinder, for Transition, and for Accelerator. So today we will discuss then the challenge P5, in space solar energy harvesting, and we will discuss the challenge Accelerator 8, space technologies and services. And we start with the Accelerator because that's the one which is most dedicated for companies. You can submit a proposal on your own as an SME. And then at 11, we move on to the Pathfinder, which is early stage research. And of course, everybody who wants is also welcome to listen to the second one. But if you are on high TRL levels, then the first session is really dedicated to you. So yes, with this slide, I just want to give also an overview of the deadlines and budgets that we have, because the open calls and also some of the challenges, they have several deadlines. That's also to make it easy for you to submit a proposal at a time which is convenient for you. So it's very important that you also have this overview in mind. So I will not read them all out. This is something that's also available for reference to you, and you can look at it. But it's not just one deadline, but we have 4 cutoff dates of all the calls, or 3, and in some cases, only 1. So with this, I want to give the word to Stella, who will now go into the Space Accelerator topic.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. So Now, what we're going to look at is the role of the EIC in the youth space industry. We'll look at the challenges, the methodologies for the topic selections, the TRL levels, and we'll do a deep dive on the accelerator topic. Now, keep in mind the budget for the accelerator topic in this work program is 65 million. So this is important to remember it. And for Pathfinder, it's around 32 million. So now, continuing with the topic, we'll look at the portfolio, the expected outcomes and impacts. So as you're aware, the European Innovation Council is starting to play more and more an important role in the European space industry. We, through funding high-risk ideas for SMEs and startups in the three areas: disruptive innovation, demonstration, and commercialization. We're witnessing at the moment the emergence of a new space economy, which is estimated to reach up to 640 billion euros by 2030. And you know that the upstream space activities are up to 8 billion for 2021. Europe is the fourth biggest player in the European space arena. However, we shouldn't forget that the EIC actually funds only civil applications. So please do be very careful with your proposals. We do not definitely fund anything defense related. We fund civil related applications. Now, as you know, competitive driving forces, changing business models, in new innovations, everything is being pushing the industry, and SMEs and startups often have to design, test, and successfully fly their hardware, and in parallel, identify customers. So in Europe, we're witnessing a growth of SMEs and startups, but their activities are in all the domain of the space mission. So from launchers to payloads, to communications, to space operations, and so on. So the reason is how is holding back European space innovation? Well, there is a strong research performance, but not often translated in commercialization. And with the new demand for fast-track qualification, launch of satellites, there are new opportunities, but also challenges. And the industry is more and more starting to look for innovative and affordable solutions. So, as I mentioned earlier, SMEs have to attract customers, attract funding, but in parallel, they have to design, test, and qualify their hardware. Therefore, they do need this support through the three programs of the EIC. And actually, especially countries from Central Eastern European countries, they need also quite a lot of support, countries which are not members or don't have space agencies. So today, I would like to present to you the two major space challenges. One, the TRL, the low TRL one is TRL 1 to 4, is in-space solar harvesting for innovative space applications, is actually looking at the long-term future. And the second one is looking at tapping in these new markets. And this is TRL 6 to 9. It's customer-driven, innovative space technologies and services. So today we'll start with the accelerator one, with TRL 6 and TRL 9. But before that, I would like to let you know how I selected these topics. My knowledge, analyzing the portfolio of the EIC projects, looking at the different horizon signals. We had a horizon scanning exercise, looking at also the Pillar 2 projects, and also working with my colleagues from DG DEFI from Pillar 2 on their experience and on the SRIA strategic research innovation agenda. From that, I identified gaps, and I used the following principles or selection criteria to select the topic. For Pathfinder, ambition, science, one, radically new technology. Innovation is a driver, but we have to think also about safety and reliability. Also, the risk assessment. Risk assessment, looking what is the risk if we don't invest in the long-term future in this domain, and EU sovereignty. Then we have transition, accelerator, also looking at innovation, but also another criteria is time to market, new markets creation, and economies of scale, how to generate economies. So before we start, I want to show you the different TRL levels. This is from the work program. As you can understand, this is the one which is, it's very important not to forget that SMEs and startups, they actually, the research starts from academia, government labs, but in partnership with SMEs and startups. And then the higher the TRL becomes, it starts to reach much more the market. And here is a very nice graph, which shows that the higher the TRL goes, the higher the costs grow. And therefore, I want to encourage you to be brave when you apply for the accelerator, not only to apply for the grant for the 2.5 million, but also to apply for equity funding up to 15 and above even if it's well justified. Please do use the TRL levels, which are on page 18 of the work program 2023. These are the reference ones. These are the ones that evaluators use for the selection of the proposals. So let's start. Let's deep dive in the customer development, some background. As you know very well, there is an increased number of satellites which are launched. There are more than 5,000 in orbit. That's in May 2022. There are around 10 tons of debris in August 2022. Space agencies, the UN, everyone is being aware that if actions are not taken, very soon space exploration will stay only in the science fiction books. How are we approaching? The EU has a STM policy for space debris sustainability, and the EU SST partnership is tackling it. Also, ESA has launched the Zero Debris Initiative just a month ago, very recently. And also, JAXA already since 2-3 years has launched a 3-year program that aims at developing commercialization approaches for space debris countermeasures. So there are a lot of activities happening. Also, you're aware that the debris is increasing. There was also ASA tests taken in last year, 2021, which resulted in creation of more than 1,500 debris reaching orbits of 1,100 kilometers. So there is clearly a need for collision avoidance capabilities, relying not only on ground-based data, but also space-based data. And we have a clear need for unified space traffic management. There is a need to collect, recover, and transform the space debris. So the next part is a graph which you all know, and I think you're very much aware of this graph. It is clear that we have to take actions today, and we're quite late. So how do we develop interoperable, scalable, but also affordable and cost-effective solutions in order to protect the EU space infrastructure? You're all aware, we have Copernicus, we have Galileo, we will be having IRIS², and it's extremely important to be able to protect it and service all the EU space infrastructure and not to rely on non-EU services. So what did we witness the last years? The launch of the Mission Extension Vehicle 1 and the Mission Extension Vehicle 2. The first launch was in 2019, and it was one which serviced the Intelsat 901 satellite. It reached a geo orbit, and not only it successfully docked, but actually it extended the lifetime of the satellite with 5 years. Then later on was launched the Mission Extension Vehicle 2. And actually, Intelsat as a satellite operator became an end customer, started to demonstrate that there is a potential market. Then in Europe, under the ESA Sunrise program, we witnessed the Astroscale LZD technology demonstration, where in low Earth orbit, they launched the LZD and they docked to a demo, a small satellite, just to make a demonstration for magnetic capturing. So clearly, there is an emerging need for servicing GEO satellites. And not only we're witnessing aging GEO and LEO satellites, but we understand there is a need to refuel, repair, and recycle, because satellite owners are starting to realize that it might be much more cost effective for them to service and extend the lifetime of a satellite rather than just deorbit it and launch a new one. Having in mind, for example, the loss of a satellite for a satellite operator could cost around 40 to 50 million of revenue. So it is extremely important to keep in mind the cost benefit analysis also. So another aspect which we're witnessing is that the International Space Station is going to retire in 2030, and we've been knowing this since 1998. We are witnessing the emergence of commercial space station, manned commercial station, Axiom, Starlab, Orbital Reef. And then also there are other ones like the outposts of NanoRacks or the Archises, which is looking at servicing actually satellites in low Earth orbit. Clearly, there is a trend which is emerging, and this trend is that it will be more and more important to service satellites in orbit, but also that European scientists continue to have access to microgravity environment, because Europe is a major contributor to the International Space Station. And with the retirement of the station, we will have limited access to microgravity environment, and we will have to depend on commercial space stations to access it. Therefore, personally, I believe it is extremely important to actually give the opportunity to our researchers and scientists to continue to fly their experiments, either in the domain of health, osteoporosis, or 3D printing, or fluid science, but really continue with their research and not create a gap just because of the retirement of the ISS. So the gaps are, the major challenge is that we do lack a user-driven in-orbit satellite servicing capabilities. So what I mean by user-driven? User-driven could be commercial or institutional in-orbit satellite servicing. We do have the competencies and the capabilities, but we haven't actually got together to have a recycling, to test our recycling satellite capabilities or implement unified STM services. Current satellites are built so they cannot be easily serviced or recycled. There is definitely a growing need for in-space mobility, payload capacity, and cost-efficient propulsion, especially with expected growth of in-orbit satellite servicing. We also witness an increased number of explosions in orbit, creating even more debris. And also, we realize that the lack of in-space debris recycling capabilities will be a strong limitation, and space debris could be actually treated as an actual resource, which could be quite beneficial. So the market is estimated for in-orbit satellite servicing and SSA to be 4.4 billion. Most of you know that UK actually, just a few months ago, published a strategy where they're looking at tapping into this market. Other studies also show 6.2 billion by 2030. I personally believe that if we don't enter now, we will face an increased competition from non-EU companies because we lack these in-orbit satellite servicing, active debris, recycling, and recovering capabilities in Europe. And not entering now, and I think we are even a little bit late, means we'll lose potential markets and potential customers, and we'll end up to paying non-European companies to service our satellites in GEO or LEO. So what are here, as you can see, what is the goal? As I mentioned, almost you can guess already, innovative, interoperable, scalable, and autonomous customer-driven space technologies. And here I would like to talk more about the areas which are inspect the spacecraft in orbit, because I personally believe that it's extremely important to be able to have real-time space data, but also you have to be able to have autonomous in-space collision avoidance capabilities using AI and MA for automatic collision avoidance, or developing platform, having onboard capabilities also. Let's say, combining this data with other type of data which could be useful. Also, once the in-orbit satellite servicing market grows and expands, you need to have real-time data for in-space mobility for the different space tugs. You need to be able to collect the space debris with a view to recycle and recover it. And here, actually, on the right, you see a Japanese concept, which is looking at collecting and recycling space debris. So how do I see the portfolio of projects? These are just an examples, okay, of possible topics or projects. It's much more a deep dive. I classified for customer-driven, I mean commercial or institutional end users. I want to avoid the situation which is typical for the space industry. Let's build this technology and then look for the customer. So already at this stage, at an early stage, I want already to think about the customer needs, the customer requirements, how and the type of services. So spacecraft inspection is the first, let's say, pillar. Also, it could be very useful under spacecraft inspection to look at for collection of spacecraft anomalies. So when a satellite launches and an antenna doesn't deploy, you need to have real-time information. What is the situation? And this information could be very useful to decide how to follow, whether to service your spacecraft or not. Also for payload ones. Then collision avoidance that I mentioned earlier, importance of space debris positioning for proximity operation, having onboard processing capabilities already, detection, collision avoidance, and so on. Also for in-orbit satellite servicing, ADR, end of life. And another important aspect, which most of you probably have thought, is what happens if we have to unexpectedly rescue a spacecraft or service unexpectedly a spacecraft which have a deployment anomaly? How do we have to deal with it? So we need the data for this collision avoidance. And the other part is collect, recover, and transform the space debris. Well, you can have different servicers, robotic servicers, also arms, tools, or which you can use. You can see whether you can use these components, whether you can recycle them or recover them, and also use the debris to transform them in a microgravity platform. So another topic, as you see, this accelerated topic is a much more wide topic, is we can use CubeSats or small sats for self-assembly of spacecraft in our orbit and for different applications, for exploration, Earth observation, for space debris, and so on. But the part which I think is extremely important is actually to think also about microgravity, having unmanned platforms. This Europe, we can achieve it easily, especially with our historic competencies on the space station, with Skylab, with the ATV. We do have automatic transfer. We do have the competences and knowledge. So we can easily have an unmanned platform, which could be a modular one, and could host microgravity experiments, or, for example, could automatically or robotically collect or reuse the space debris and make using not only modular concepts, but sustainable in the long term. And the last point is actually scaling up disruptive innovation for in-space logistics, Earth observation, navigation, and SATCOM. And how do I see it? Some examples. I classified it for in-orbit satellite servicing, ADR, and of life services. So it's extremely important to be able to augment your spacecraft, or if you have an external payload, to be able to change it or service it. Refueling, that's the other domain. Orbit raising, you know, it's a must, having orbit raising. In-space docking, payload, antenna replacement of antenna components, any form of robotic servicing with modular, interoperable, or scalable parts. Having modular payloads, internal and external, this would be extremely beneficial. And another area which already countries like US are looking at in space assembly and manufacturing, but Europe with its experience in Perispera also is looking at self-assembly. But here I'm looking for self-assembly with small sats and CubeSats, GNC capabilities, multi-material manufacturing, and material separation. And then the last one is microgravity platforms. Is it possible that we design and construct a LEO one or unmanned? It could be a completely self-assembled one. It could host internal and external payloads. It could also service small sats or even CubeSats, or you could collect and reuse space debris. And the expected outcomes are here. I will not go in much details and read them for you, because I think you can see it yourself in the work program. But just, I want to tell you that for me, it's extremely important that I see proposals where they can service, reuse, and recover EU space infrastructure, contribute to space debris reduction in a timely and cost-effective manner, looking really at the wide variety of impacts, research impacts, innovation impacts, and economic impacts, because I would like to encourage the creation of innovative in-space servicing industry in Europe, or growth, at least its growth, which will make a lot of spillover effects. Here is the portfolio. This is just an example of the topics, how I see the projects, how I organize the projects under the portfolio. And then, what is our complementarity? Our first one is to the strategic research and innovation agenda projects, which win EIC Accelerator, or in the EIC Accelerator portfolio, will actually directly contribute to the future space ecosystem roadmap. And my colleague, Daniel Nolke from DG DEFIS, will actually present it. It will directly contribute to space traffic management in the context of the EU SST partnership activities. And companies in the accelerator will have fast-track access to fly their hardware under the IOD/IOV Horizon Europe. In the long-term future, I believe that we would see really a growth for a need for in-space mobility and robotics. And as you see on the right, I think it will be not only fully robotic, but it will be prerequisite also for microgravity activities. So with this, I do give Do you have any questions, by the way?
Yes, I think there is one question, and it is about dual use, because you said this doesn't link to defense, but to civil applications. But of course, many space applications are dual use. So how do you see that?
Dual use is acceptable. We can take proposal with dual use, but be careful for legal reason, due to the legal regulation of Horizon Europe, we are not allowed to fund full defense or full security applications. You have to put forward the civil application and left in the dark and leave in the dark what is related to defense.
But you also need to declare this as an ethics issue, because it will also then be studied by ethical experts to see if this is really dual use or if it is still mainly defense application. Is there another question for Stella? Did you see another question? I think I saw one question more about TRL levels.
Yeah.
So on the TRL division, a belief that only startups are willing to take up TRL 2 to 4 is, in my opinion, not correct for the space sector. Long-standing names in the space industry are working on TRL 2 to 4 projects. Does that mean that companies existing longer than 10 years cannot take up EIC funding?
Can I answer?
Yes, please answer it.
No, it doesn't. The companies with longer than 10 years can actually apply in Pathfinder in consortiums. So they are pretty much on all Pathfinder projects. They can qualify and apply. We have organizations who have applied, because I know that many space companies have innovation departments and perform research at TRL 2 or 3, and they could actually be in a partnership for Pathfinder project.
Eric Olivier, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah. No, I had another question. Sorry, there was a question from Swiss companies. I saw on the chat. You have to know that for the time being, there is no association agreement between Switzerland and the EU. And for this legal reason, again, Swiss companies cannot apply to the EIC Accelerator. But there are some cases of relocation of companies from any of country which is not in the EU in a member state to be able to apply.
May I suggest that now we continue with your presentation, with Eric Olivier's presentation?
Did you share? You will share your screen.
Do you want me to share it?
So I will quickly show you what is our evaluation process for the one who do not know yet, or maybe some refreshment of your knowledge on this evaluation process under the EIC Accelerator. Now it's a mature process, I would say. We have 3 years of experience. We have improved this evaluation process. And in a nutshell, it is composed of the 3 following phases. First, the screening of short proposals. It is quick. It is meant to avoid any mistake from the beginning, not to lose time. If you're not the right type of company, if it's not the right project, then this has to be very clearly said from the beginning, from the outset. So very quickly, you will know if it's a go or a no-go to the next evaluation stage with the screen. I will enter into more detail. Then the second step is the evaluation of the full proposals with remote evaluators. And then again, it's a go or no-go for the last evaluation stage, which is the interview in front of a jury of usually 5 or 6 members. And finally, we have a list of go that is funded, selected for funded company, and no-go, non-funded proposals.
Go to you. Share it.
Sorry, it does not work. So the evaluation process is managed by our agency, SMEs. All proposals submitted in response to our calls for proposal are collected in the EIC platform and checked first against the admissibility and eligibility criteria that are legal constraints. And then only if they meet admissibility and eligibility criteria will undergo evaluation. So there are, as you know, in the regulation, there are 3 award criteria. 2 are very well known, excellence and impact are the same across the whole framework program. But the third one is a bit specific for the EIC Accelerator. And there were a long discussion within the Council and the Parliament about it. And it's the level of risk of the implementation and the need for union support compared to any other support. So this is a tricky criterion. But you have to know that the level of risk must be very high. The implementation must be very, very good in terms of proposal. And we have to make sure you need this union support, and you cannot get a support at regional or national level. There are more details in the work program text. I come back now to the evaluation process in 4 steps. First, it's an easy way to understand how it works. But if you have a very good idea, a good concept that you want to bring to the market, you want to scale up the potential, to tell us your story in 5 pages. This is the short proposal. Then we will help you to prepare your business plan and to draft a proposal with the support of the AI tool and the coaching from SMEs. And within a year, you can reach the full proposal. This full proposal will be assessed by the remote evaluators, the 3rd stage. And finally, if it's a go, you will pitch in front of the EIC jury members. And finally, if selected for funding, you will sign a contract and go to the grant support and possibly the equity support. So first, the short application, the short proposal is very simple and very light. You only have to respond to a set of questions on the AI-based IT tool, which is guiding you across your proposal. You have to submit 10 slides for a presentation and also a 3-minute video pitch to see that effectively there is something behind of your proposal. The evaluation process is very light. There are only 4 experts. You need at least 2 goes to pass this step. If there are 3 or even 4 no-goes, then only 1 submission of this short proposal is possible. But if you have 2 goes, which is relatively reasonable, you can go for the full proposal. The full proposal must be prepared within the 12 months within receiving the outcome of the short proposal evaluation. And you have to prepare a convincing business plan, and then you have to submit your full proposal under the AI platform. Then we have now 3 experts. You can see then the cutoff dates for this year below. So one is already over. Next one is on the 22nd of March, but be reassured, the Space Challenge only open for March. And then you have June or October. This year you have 3 cutoff dates available. So back to the experts, they have to decide. If you have the 3 goes, then you can reach the interview level, next step. But if you have at least 1 no-go, it does not work, and you have only 1 chance again for a full proposal resubmission. There is a special case for resubmissions in this situation, because we have cases that are on the borderline. And then we introduced this year a novelty, you have to know, in case of we have 8 out of the 9 goes and only 1 no-go, then we will call a 4th expert to decide whether it's a go or a no-go. It's a new chance, in fact. But if you are up to 7 out of the 9 goes, then it's a no-go, and you have to go back to the short proposal system. So then, the interview, finally, you pitch your innovation in front of the jury. It's composed of serial entrepreneurs, innovation specialists, senior investors, researchers, and so on, depending on the thematic field. They will ask you questions, and you have to clearly answer to all questions from the EIC jury members. And finally, if it's a go, you are selected, and you will sign this contract. So to make it clear, interview up to 6 jury members. If it's a go contract, if it's a no-go with a second chance, you have a possible resubmission directly for the interview. If it's a no-go with what we call the seal of excellence, there's still a resubmission possible for the full proposal. And if it's no-go rejected, you still stand a chance with a full proposal. The interview are taking place 7 to 8 weeks after the cutoff date, except for the summer closing or the Christmas break. Thank you for your attention. I'm ready to answer any questions you may have.
I also looked at the chat, and there are a few questions, so maybe we can start with answering these questions. And then I would give the floor to my colleagues from DG DEFIS, okay? So the first question was related on downstream Earth observation navigation applications. I would like to let you know that there are 2 ways in the work program, and I'll show you now on the slide which ones. So as you see in the accelerator, one way is in the open, of course, to apply. So you're very welcome for the downstream to apply in the open. The other one is the last bullet of the customer-driven innovative technologies, which is to scale up disruptive innovations for space situational awareness in space logistic, Earth observation, navigation, SATCOM, and others. So these are the areas where you can actually apply. Now in the open, there is enough budget, as you saw earlier in the budget figure, and you can actually, let me just go to the figure. You can see that you can already start applying in the open for the Earth observation downstream. Then there was a question related to 3D printing, whether it could be bigger structure or only small sats or CubeSats. It could be anything, which keep in mind that when we talk about 3D printing, it could be in an experiment on a microgravity platform, okay? And we don't want to encourage the creation of space debris. We want to remove the space debris. So this is an important aspect to consider. However, any innovative ideas are very much welcome. There was a question on the orbit cleaning, and I will just stop sharing and just to go to the question. Yeah, the downstream, the TRL. Yes, the TRL 8 to 9, I do agree that in the space context, they're a bit different, but for our proposals, will be used the TRLs on page 18 from the work program. The question which is related to the overall project is at high TRL, but the technology is at low TRL of Matthew Bolland. I would like to let you know that at TRL 5, you can already apply for Accelerator. So if you already have TRL 5, you can. However, if most of the technologies are at lower TRL, you should be carefully think about the application. The orbiting satellites, yes, or the orbiting space debris or recycling, it's definitely part of the scope. A company which has not been in the Pathfinder or ERC cannot participate in the transition. In this work program, there is also a new opportunity under the EDF. As I recall, companies which have EDF projects, they can actually participate in transition, but there is no space challenge on the transition. For the call for new experts and evaluators, well, please register on the expert portal, and if anyone is interested, can contact me. There is a question about the ADEO drag sales for the orbiting satellites. That's a very interesting concept. And I don't see many other questions. I'll just look at dates 2024. It's still too early. So now we're talking about the dates of 2023. And Derek Olivia, there is a question.
But you can expect that in 2024, the dates will be similar. So the work program will have a similar structure. But of course, we don't know in 2024 yet what will be the specific challenges on space, because that content still needs to be defined by the program manager, and then there will be a large discussion also with other stakeholders.
I just want to answer one question, and then I give it to Eric Olivier, as he has a few. So the first point of contact with the EIC are national contact points. And also, if they cannot get hold of them, they can contact me on the content, the program manager. We have at the EIC, we're part of many different events. And I think in Sofia, there will be in mid of February, there will be also an event. There are a lot we're partnering with our colleagues from DG DEFI, so you can reach to me. However, I want to make it very clear, I do not have visibility on the proposals for which apply. I do not participate in the selection process. There is a completely different unit. I can just give guidance on the work program and clarification, but I cannot review proposals and tell you that is not part of there are independent experts which perform this.
And national contact points that are dealt with, are dealing with this issue, and EEN network can also help for consultation on proposal submission.
Yeah, that's the Europe Enterprise Network. So very important. We want to be very impartial. We don't want to favor anybody who writes to Stella directly, and other people who don't know that they can write to Stella about advice of a proposal. So nobody should write to Stella about, is this in scope, or what do you think about this? All those questions, they should be addressed to your national contact point, who is trained to answer these questions, who understands very well the scope of the call. And only when a national contact point would have a doubt, they are the ones that contact Stella, and Stella will then answer the question. And so that's very important that everybody understands how this works.
I suggest, Eric Olivier, you address three questions, and then we...
There is a question about resubmission again, and indeed, for each resubmission, we expect the full proposal to be improved at the later stage. If you resubmit, it means that you are improving your proposal, filling the gaps, or correcting the mistakes that you did at the first submission.
So I think at the moment, the best way is to continue with the presentation of my colleagues from DG DEFIS. All the questions which you have put in the chat, they will be addressed. And actually, my colleague Johannes, he will put his email and they will be answered the questions. So now I would like to introduce to you my colleague, Daniel Noke, who is responsible for the future space ecosystem roadmap. Thank you very much, Daniel, for joining us.
Thank you, Stella. Thank you, colleagues. Can you confirm that you hear and see me and see my slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. So thanks for the invitation. Hello, everyone from my side. My name is Daniel Noke. I'm from DG DEFIS, Defense Industry and Space, and the European Commission. We are, just for those who do not know us, so we are also responsible for the Horizon Europe Cluster 4 work program, Destination 5 here, to implement activities related to space. So I'm going to talk in 10 minutes very brief about the future space ecosystem that you have heard already here and there in Stella's presentation, and what it is about. So in principle, the future space ecosystem is, in general speaking, very important for us. As we have it defined now, it incorporates enabling technologies, but especially also with a focus on in-orbit servicing, so in-space services in general. And here I'm speaking about servicing, assembly, manufacturing, logistic aspects, everything. So the future space ecosystem is important for the EU Commission because we want to be able to conduct activities in space, to do space operation in a meaningful, sustainable, and really efficient way in the future. This is why we have to care about the future space ecosystem. But as you know, and the expression that it perceived to you, it is more than only talking about the space infrastructure. You should care about everything, supply chains, things that you need on ground, so the ground segment, and of course the space segment, for example. All in all, to say, in this future space ecosystem topic covers all related aspects. However, there's a special focus at the moment on in-space services, but I will go through it now. So with this activity, future space ecosystem line, we are trying to push, so since already a decade or even more, boundaries. We want to push boundaries. We want to draw vision. So we have consulted in the last years many stakeholders in Europe. Also have international discussions on this area. Where do we want to go? In which direction? So then, as you see, many people say, yeah, we can think of a highly automated, flexible, sustainable, but also economical, viable space infrastructure in the future, thinking about a space segment. This is something that we think this is a good vision in this direction, and therefore we are working in this direction. In the same time, we all know from the Commission that we have a policy context that we have to fit in. Of course, we want to make our infrastructure more resilient. We want to be more sustainable and protect our space environment. We need to be more non-dependent and strategic autonomy in technology and also capabilities. And last but not least, our products and services must be competitive to be really a leader at the global market. And especially this, let's say, strategic capability of acting in space, so to say, and here I'm talking about in-space services, is a focus of the future space ecosystem activity, which will be also a focus or one of the foci in our new strategy for EU space R&I, which we are working at the moment on it with support of colleagues from Horizon Europe Pillar 1 and Pillar 3, here in this case also colleagues from SMEs. And as you know, as I've said, in-space services is a focus of this future space ecosystem line, but not only the technology development that is needed, but also one needs to care about framework, business-related framework, So to say guidelines, standards, where which help companies and investors to be more confident in this area, to have a guiding element, and to create also in the end more visibility of this overall area. In-space services will definitely help to act in space, to make our infrastructure more resilient, to be able to upgrade them, to repair them, to remove them if necessary, but also to enter totally new areas like recycling, in-space recycling, or reusability or functionality, for example, which is necessary for being more sustainable and protect the in-space ecosystem. As I said, we have experience already since a decade. We have done major stepping stones already at the EU Commission via the Space Research Program. However, as you can see here in the timeline, there is a common sense, and I have read in the chat already this in-orbit servicing strategy of the US, for example. There's a common sense in which direction we will evolve, somehow, more or less at least. Most of the people say we would like to have a highly automated in-space infrastructure in the end. And here you can see some stepping stones. So I think Europe, with the technology at the hand, we are in the position by 2030 at least to implement space logistic services for the EU. We can offer life extension services. We can offer simple assembly service, but also, of course, inspection services. This is just an example. By 2035, one can expect that the first assembly platforms are available in orbit. We can talk about simple recycling, manufacturing activities. And here I say the plug and play functionality. So plug and play means you add, place and plug functional modules that bring additional functionality to platforms. We can talk about warehouses and logistics services, for example. In 2040, we have more evolved services in space. So this is a typical roadmap towards the future space ecosystem. But main driver that drives the priority of those implementations is sustainability, safety, resilience, competitiveness, and commercial opportunities, of course. So this activity that we run, and we have activities in our work program since years already. In this current work program, where the call is open, work program 23, Horizon Europe, there we have also 2 calls related to future space ecosystem. Here we foster definitely all enabling technologies that are needed for this, like, for example, robotic technologies, AI, electric propulsion, modular concepts, all the elements that are needed to foster this paradigm shift in space. So, and here parallels can be taken also, or should be taken also from other sectors, especially when it comes to economic of scale effect, mass production of parts, industrial processes, all the aspects that are relevant for enhancing our development, production, assembly, and integration processes in space to be more competitive at the end. So all aspects belong to this area. Not only the on-orbit service and related technologies by themselves, but also other aspects that are needed to implement them in a suitable way. So just very quickly, we had already in the last decade, Horizon 2020, a lot of building blocks generated that are relevant for on-orbit servicing activities. Like, for example, we were working on interfaces for plug-and-play, so USB in space concepts, working on modules, on robotic operation systems. So many things have been evolved and matured already up to a certain TL. On the right side, you see the on-orbit orbital demonstration mission that currently is being prepared and implemented in Horizon Europe Cluster 4. We expect to launch the mission, it's a servicing mission, by and of Horizon Europe. And the idea is here, of the mission concept currently, is to offer a first service to a client satellite, demonstrate station keeping, docking, refueling, and assembly. So this is a bit the idea, the mission concept. We are currently in phase B to C on this activity. I will not go into detail, but you can see it's not just some words that we have, but we have also a concrete roadmap of activities. Just put your eyes on the small blue line here where demonstration is written. So we see, as I said, by the end of Horizon Europe, we try to launch a mission. Of course, in parallel, one has to work on the next generation of in-space services. And here, this is, by the way, also that was mentioned by Stella before. This is also part of our strategic research and innovation agenda. But this agenda, of course, will be updated at the moment and replaced by the new strategy. Also here, of course, like I said, the colleagues from Stella and team will contribute to that work. However, we are still working here in all the lines to prepare the next generation of services. Just my last slide, just to tell you, looks like that we have so many things to do. Indeed, there's a lot of work to do for us in Europe to really be able to conduct in space in a way that we would like to do it. However, we have, like I said, already developed a lot, and one can already work on the implementation of applications, which is, by the way, also what was presented by Stella and the activities. I think it's also a good opportunity for you stakeholders to take stock of the things that are already there, to come with new ideas and combine it to new applications, and come to really attractive proposals, in that case, for our colleagues at the EIC. And as you can see, just the last word, of course, at the moment, with the technology at hand, at least as we have seen it over the last years, there are different ways, of implement in-space services, but we are already now able to come up with concepts for even assembly large structures or implement simple recycling activities. So talking about platforms and so on and so forth. So these things are already possible from now. Of course, when it comes to more advanced activities like in-source resource utilization or advanced manufacturing in space, there's, of course, a lot of work ahead, and we need to work a bit more. But still, we can be at the forefront. We can participate in generating a new market in this area. And this is what we are doing at DigiDefi with the colleagues together to work in this direction and to draw a bit the future here. So thanks for that. These are the numbers that we think are realistic when we can implement something in orbit. And with that, I would close. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. So I suggest now we hear the presentation from Maria Vittoria Mavi, and then we have questions from the audience towards you, and then we wrap up the session. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. Maria Vittoria Dinzel, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we hear you well.
Can somebody put up my slides, or shall I share them?
Maybe if she can share them.
If you can share them yourself, that would be convenient.
No problem. No problem. Right. Okay, you should be able to see them full screen, yes?
We see them well.
Yeah, we see them clearly.
Brilliant. So I work in DigiDefi in the same unit as Danielle on innovation, startup, and economics. Today I'm going to give a brief overview on what the in-orbit demonstration and validation service looks like. As Stella already anticipated, we are trying to make links between the initiative that we fund under the Cluster 4, Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe, and the European Innovation Council. So hopefully this will also answer one of the questions that I saw in the chat in the upcoming slides. So briefly, very briefly, why, what is the rationale behind the IOD-IOV initiative is obviously to allow new technology development and innovation to be tested in orbit and gain the famous flight heritage. Because we all know that validating concept and testing of technologies is important to access the market, and it facilitates the commercialization of promising technologies, and it also helps addressing the infamous valley of death that a lot of technologies find themselves with. Because obviously being able to test into orbit is a quite expensive endeavor, and there are not as much opportunities, which is why we decided to set up such a large scale, such a forward-looking service back in Horizon Europe, in Horizon 2020, and we had a first call in 2018 to gather experiments that could be considered for IOD-IOV action. So first call was in 2018. The second call we had it last year, and there will be, of course, a future call. Of course, you see the benefits on the right-hand side of the slide. The whole idea behind IOD-IOV is to, for sure, ensure the global competitiveness of the European space sector, to gain flight heritage, provide cost-effective services based on EU solution, and prepare a next generation of European engineers with hands-on experience. So with that in mind, what are the expected outcomes that we try to have within Horizon Europe is obviously, as I was mentioning, reducing time to market of and accelerate commercialization of new technologies, product concept, architecture, and operation technique, provide a cost-effective service for aggregation, launch service, and operation of these selected experiments that are based on EU solutions, both for the spacecraft, meaning the platform that accommodates the experiment, and for the launch services, with the idea to have at least one opportunity for one IOD-IOV opportunity every year throughout the Horizon Europe implementation period. Of course, for the implementation of the IOD-IOV service, we work in close collaboration with the European space agencies that supports us in the procurement activities and in the project management, as well as they provide huge support also for the experiment in the experiment selection. So just important to clarify that the IOD-IOV service is open really to experiment provider from any type of entity, from academia, research organization, SMEs, startups, large industrial companies, space agencies, and so on, provided that they are able to demonstrate that they really need the in-orbit testing, and that their technology cannot be tested on the ground, and it is sufficient for the commercialization and acceleration. Again, the service is really, you can apply as a single entity or as in a consortium. What is important for us is to have one single interlocutor. Obviously, because we are in the frame of Horizon Europe, the Horizon Europe rules will apply in terms of participation of countries, of entities based in EU and associated countries. So the way in which we defined the IOD-IOV experiment can be innovative technologies, as I said, product concept, architecture, operation technique that require in-orbit testing. And these can be in form of instrument, equipment, technologies, system experiment, missions, industrial payload, etc. You can ask for this service experiment can be accommodated on spacecraft or be provided as complete systems, meaning that they are ready to fly satellites practically. So the service that we give, and it will be fully free of charge, include aggregation of the experiment on a platform or spacecraft, if obviously this is needed. If the experiment is provided as a full ready-to-fly satellite, we provide the launch services and also the operation. Obviously, the aggregation, launch services, and operation are provided all together. These are the services that we provide as part of the initiative. Obviously, what is not included as part of our services, the development and the support for the development of the experiment, of the technologies that need in-orbit testing, which needs to be provided and needs to be looked at through alternative sources of funding. So just to give you an overview, this slide is really for reference because it describes the process that just closed, especially for the selection of IOD-IOV experiments. But it's just for you to have an overview, and based on this, you can already anticipate more or less the timing from 2023 onwards. So usually, from the moment where we publish the call for expression of interest, there is the analysis of received application, and then a preliminary accommodation analysis by the European Space Agency to identify possible configuration of the IOD-IOV mission that need to be accommodated on the platform, and then confirm the experiment pre-selection. Then we have the tendering and contracting for the platform and the aggregation services, followed by the procurement of launch services for IOD-IOV mission. And of course, this is for the experiment that need to be aggregated. Obviously, for the complete system, the ready-to-fly IOD-IOVs, the process is much shorter, because if an experiment is already available, what we do is we procure the launch services, and voilà, and we cover the launch cost. So, still in the call that we had, we issued in 2022. Of course, because we want to be able to provide a flexible but also quite recurrent and fast service, we expect that the experiments have already reached a TRL of 5 to 6 at the time, but by the time that their flight model needs to be delivered. And of course, for experiment needing aggregation, compliance with resources and interfaces compatible with SmallSat and CubeSat missions. For experiment in the form of complete system, we expect obviously compatibility with EU manufactured launcher solution, because we will rely on EU, as I mentioned before, with EU solution both for spacecraft and launch services. Be compliant with the overall planning regarding flight model delivery and launch, as indicated obviously in the call for expression of interest. And we also expect, and this is part of the overall declaration of the application package, all experiment providers shall provide a declaration of commitment of flight model delivery as part of the application package. Just to understand, okay, I see there are quite a few questions and hand rising. Very good. Shows that there is a lot of interest in this. Just to give an overview on what is the selection process. So from the time of application, when we receive the application and that we have a cutoff date, the deadline for application, there is an analysis of the received application that is done both by independent expert contracted by us, by Commission, and accompanied by...
Mavi, sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but you really now need to wrap up because our next session will start at 11:30.
Okay, bon, I will just then go to and these are my last two slides. Really, so of course for the starting from Q1 in the upcoming months, we will launch a new call for expression of interest that will be continuously open, and there will be a number of cutoff dates. We are going to change it because there will be a call dedicated to experiment needing aggregation and a call for ready to fly IOD IOV satellite, the so-called complete systems. You find all the relevant information on the Europa website. Just to conclude on what is the added value for EIC beneficiaries. So obviously that companies that are supported under the EIC challenge will have the opportunity to benefit from our IOD IOV service. This is taken from the extract of the EIC work program. However, it's important to keep in mind that you are all requested to submit an application form and provide the necessary information specified in the call text, because your application needs to be analyzed and needs to meet the minimum criteria to be able to reach the next step, which is pre-selection and selection phase. And it is only here at the pre-selection and selection phase that we will be able to give a priority to the innovation that have already been funded under union programs, including EIC, and so that you can go directly to the selection phase and benefit from this service. There was a question in the chat if past beneficiaries of EIC can apply. For sure you can apply. Please, by all means, do it. Keep an eye on our website, as I said, because that's where we always put all the information.
Thank you very much, Mavi. Thank you very much. And Daniel also. So any questions related to Daniel Nocke and to Mavi, please do send it to us. You have already Johannes' number, but also Mavi has shared her email on the last slide. I will definitely coordinate with my colleagues from DG DEFI, so all the questions will be answered. So now I would like to just wrap up this session, and then we will have a short break and start with the Pathfinder. I don't know whether you see my screen.
Yes.
Very good. So, as a wrap up, this is a long-term future. There was a very good question in the chat link to future lunar capabilities, but everything which we will develop as services, technologies, products under the challenge under the EIC Accelerator part will actually help us for any future activities, also for in-space exploration and lunar exploration. As you know, there will be the Gateway Station, and European astronauts are actually planned to have, for now, for sure, 3 flights for 30 days. But there will be a lot of activities between the Gateway Station and the lunar surface, as you understand. And the moon doesn't have any atmosphere, so in-orbit satellite servicing, end-of-life services for the lunar surface will be aspects which will be very important. And in preparation for the long-term future, European space industry needs to be competitive and have their services and technologies ready for this next step. Now, thank you very much. And I suggest that we start in 5 minutes. We can reconvene. So that would be at 11:36. Thank you, and looking forward to see you for the Pathfinder session. All the best.